Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Devil Experience. How are you all doing? Hope everybody is doing well. My name is Eric. We have a lot of Manchester United news to get into. Media, Ten Hag derangement syndrome is full on in effect. Absolutely 110%. The media has lost their mind about Erik Ten Hag. And we have a lot of transfer updates for the summer of 2025, interestingly enough. We have some comments made by Ralph Rangnick. We have some comments made by Nicky Butt on Ten Hag and Ugarte. And we're going to get straight into it. Please smash the like button for me if you can. Greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed today's content, helps us out a lot. So please, I can't get that through enough. Smash the like button, please. And subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Join our lovely community and get involved in the show. So we're going to start off, as I'm sure most of you are probably well aware. The media have yet again continued to attack Erik Ten Hag. They have falsely reported and weirdly reported about how he managed a testimonial in the Netherlands, and they said that he lost the match even though he really won the match. So as you can see, Talk Shite is up here on next to me, and they're one of the few outlets that have reported this, I guess, fake news or hate news, whatever you want to call it. There's other couple media outlets, and we're going to get into it, and we're going to call them out because this needs to stop. The agenda is clear against this manager. Again, I take the stance of you don't have to believe in him. You don't have to necessarily back him as a Manchester United fan, but from the outside of this fan base, these people are snakes, and I don't really know what it is that they have specifically against this man, but it's clear the hate and just the pure lies and the agenda is there, and they will take any opportunity they can to hit him. So Erik Ten Hag, who obviously is the Manchester United manager, returned to his former club, FC Utrecht, to manage a team in a testimonial match for veteran defender Mark van der Marel. Despite the casual and celebratory nature of the testimonial games, which are typically not focused on the scoreline, there was a considerable media attention on Ten Hag due to his tenure at Manchester United. The media initially reported that Ten Hag's team lost the match with the scoreline of 2-1. However, this reporting was inaccurate. According to various reports, Ten Hag's team actually won the game with the same scoreline, 2-1, which has led to a wave of criticism from fans and observers on the pointing out the media's error and suggesting an agenda against Ten Hag. Several news outlets, including the Daily Mail, the Mirror, the Sun, and Talk Shite, were called out for their initial reports. These outlets were accused of either not fact-checking properly or deliberately misrepresenting the outcomes to fit a negative narrative around Ten Hag. Now, we all know that this was not an accident. They did this on purpose. They've been doing this. This is a tactic in the media. We are not, fools. We weren't born yesterday. And against Erik Ten Hag, they've been doing this. They've been misrepresenting or accidentally, putting things that weren't accurate and then deciding that they have to go back on what they were saying. This is not new. This is an old tactic. They've done it to him multiple times. They do it in other aspects of the media as well, not just in this case. But for Erik Ten Hag, this is not the first time they've done this. And, here's Talk Sport. Here's another one. Erik Ten Hag suffers defeat again as Manchester United boss takes charge of former club for testimonial match 1 week after brutal loss to rivals Liverpool. Here's another headline from the Mirror. Erik Ten Hag suffers yet another defeat after making return to former club. At this point, it's really getting out of hand. This isn't how I wanted to start the show, but off of the last show that we did when I said that the Ten Hag slander needs to stop, the media have decided to double down on basically something that literally isn't a story. And they've decided that they're going to turn it into a story and a talking point. And all they've managed to do is rile a bunch of hate against themselves. And blow it up into something that literally was nothing, into a hate campaign against themselves, because fans are not having this. And I'm glad that there are fans and there are Manchester United accounts, such as the aggregators, who have a large following, that are calling this out. It needs to be called out. It needs to be continued to called out. When they do things like this, we need to come together as a fan base and make sure we hit them twice as hard as how they're trying to hit this manager. I still will continue to take the stance that, as Manchester United fans, you can criticize the manager. You don't have to like the manager necessarily. You don't have to believe in the manager and to a point that you think that he's going to be successful. That is okay as fans. We are fans of this club. You can hold an opinion. Nobody has to hold the same opinion. But when these outsiders who have a clear agenda, who hate Manchester United, who hate the manager of this club, who hate everything that this club stands for, come and attack our club or our manager, we must stand together and back whoever it is that they are attacking, whether it is a player, whether it is a manager, whether it is somebody. Pretty much anybody besides the Glazers, because nobody likes them, and you have a right to attack them. And I just think, off the back of last show, I think it's an absolute disgrace. I mean, they couldn't have waited for another Premier League performance, anything that has maybe some type of merit to be able to at least talk some crap against Erik Ten Hag. I mean, we know you're desperate to write bad news about him. We know you dislike him. He dislikes you. I think for obvious reasons. I think most of us dislike you for obvious reasons. And again, this is just another example of, the agenda driven against Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag. I think it's absolutely disgusting. And we need to continue to call it out. Again, I didn't plan on doing this story. There's a lot of big news that have come out today, including transfers. I think Nicky Butt has spoken. He said some very smart things. I think Nicky Butt is a good man. When he was at the club, I still think he should have probably been there. I think he was doing a good job, but he's spoken. There's a lot of more pressing things than this stupid stories that these media outlets have decided that they want to run on because it's an international break and they're bored and they have nothing to put out, even though they do have stuff to put out, which is the amount of transfer news for the summer of 2025 that has come out today from Manchester United. And we're going to get on to all of that. But I needed to call this out in the beginning of the show because when they do things like this, it needs to be called out. It needs to be called out and it needs to be addressed. So we could get through all of that. I'm done with that part, that segment of the show, because really there's no reason to keep going on. Shout out to all my people in the chat. Richard's here. Ray is here. Axelord is here. I hope everybody's doing good. Richard pointing out again, that's what they do. Hated, adored, but never ignored. Absolutely. And Richard also saying, no, they can't wait for that. They are trying to prove they're relevant. Well, I think part of it, Richard, is that they are very upset that Erik Ten Hag has kept his job. I mean, if you remember, prior to the FA Cup match against Manchester City, the final that we won, remember how all the media wrote that he was already sacked, regardless of the result. And we know they wanted him sacked. They were desperate for him to be sacked. They were desperate for him for months to be sacked. Especially the back of that last season, which was not a good season. It was pretty much a war against the fans and the media, where the fans were pleading for Erik Ten Hag pretty much to take another year under a proper structure, which Nicky Butt touches on. And they didn't get their way. They didn't get their way, and I think they're upset about that. They're hurt about that. And they're going to take every opportunity they get. And even if they don't have an opportunity, it seems like they're going to create opportunities out of their ass to try and hit Erik Ten Hag. So I expect this to continue. I also expect Erik Ten Hag to retaliate even more. We talked about this last time. You know, when Erik came into the club, he tried to keep it on a professional level, a respectful level. He didn't really hit out at the media a lot. Pretty much from his beginning to probably somewhere last season and continuing now, he does hit out a lot more at the media. And he's being a lot more aggressive with them, and I think rightfully so. How this ends, I don't know, but I definitely expect it to continue. And you know, I back him when he does it, so I think he absolutely should. Um, that was their story of the summer. Ten Hag sacked. I mean, yeah, I mean that's the thing that drives them the most interactions and gets them the most clicks. So, absolutely. But let's move on to some better things to talk about because that's just absolutely garbage. So, Nicky Butt, former Manchester United player, and you know, maybe some people consider him a legend of the club. Um, he has been speaking. He had a couple things to say. So, following up on our little take on Ten Hag in the media, he did have some comments on Erik Ten Hag, and this might be a bit small, but I'm going to read it to you guys because it's a lot to fit in there. He had a lot to say. So Nicky Butt on Erik Ten Hag saying that the managers put a squad together that's going to have to learn the way of playing and being successful. I think we were probably the only big football club in the world that didn't have a sporting director, didn't have certain things in place, but now we have. So hopefully there's no excuses, but it will take time. You might have put a squad together, but you can't expect them to go on the pitch and be dominant. We're gonna have to be patient, but long is that gonna take? I don't know. I think if they give him an extension and they kept him on and they have got to give him time. Otherwise, you get rid of him in the summer. It's madness to get rid of him in November, December, or January because unless they have got someone waiting, which quite obviously they haven't, they would have done it in the summer. They have got to stand by him. They have got to give him a bit of time, and hopefully he will get it right over the next few months. So, again, I think, you know, Nicky Butt speaking here, backing Ten Hag, but also just saying and being a logical person. You know, it's a nice change to hear somebody that's an ex-player of the club, somebody that also was involved in the backroom staff of Manchester United in a very important position. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was um, head of youth development, if I'm not mistaken, at one point, um, or something like that. And it's just a nice change to hear somebody that was involved in Manchester United throughout different aspects speak about the current status of the manager position and what's going on at the club. You know, I think he went into large I think he went into depth and I think he made just smart comments, smart and educated comments about the situation on Manchester United, and it's just a nice change to hear that instead of the normal nonsense of after he loses a match, he's getting sacked by November. Or, you know, there's no style of play, there's no this and that. I mean, he gave some insight, and I think, you know, what he had to say, I do agree with pretty much mostly everything he said. You know, and I think the points that he hit on aligns with what I've been saying, with what some of you have been saying for sure, and probably the rest of the fan base as well. You know, I think the fact that he touched on that we're probably the only big football club in the world that didn't have a sporting director. Um, I think I think the part that he said that, you know, we've put the squad together, but you can't expect him to go on the pitch and be dominant immediately. those things are gonna take time. You have to try and gel it, right? There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's gonna take time, and there's gonna need to be some patience. This is something that I touched on last time because there is a crossroad here in the way things are being seen in terms of that we do have a new structure. We have a sporting director, as Nicky Butt has pointed out, but this is Erik Ten Hag's third season. Fans are gonna have to make up their mind and decide at some moment what path they want to go down. We have a new structure. And are you going to give Ten Hag the time he needs to succeed under a new structure? Or are you going to say that he's 3 seasons in, he hasn't been able to do it, although his first 2 seasons were under a different structure and he had different people to work with. 3 seasons in, he hasn't been able to do it, and he's gonna go. At some point, Manchester United fans are going to have to make this decision of, are they going to give Erik Ten Hag the time that he needs under a new structure, or is his time up? And you don't think he's going to be able to do it. But also the one of the parts I kind of disagree with him here is that where he's saying that it'd be madness to get rid of him, and it's not that part. It's not the part that the madness to get rid of him in November, December, and January. I think the part I disagree with is where he says it's because unless they have got someone waiting, which they might. I think he might be wrong about that. I think they do have a list of people that if it does go sideways and if it does goes wrong and they do feel like they have to sack him and get somebody else in, I do think that there is a list of people out there. I just believe that they looked at that list of people and Erik Ten Hag and said the best course of action is to continue with Erik Ten Hag. He's probably the best choice out there. That doesn't mean that they don't have other choices. I just think that they decided that Erik Ten Hag at that moment was the best choice out of the list that they have. I do believe that they have people out there waiting. So I do disagree with Nicky Butt on that. If it does go really bad by the time we hit November, December, or January, I think there is a big chance that he might get sacked. I hope, maybe INEOS surprises us, but I guess we got to see when we get to that point. And he was head of youth development. All right, thank you, Richard. Now, Nicky Butt also has spoken on Ugarte, saying I've seen a bit of him last year, and I think he's what we need. He's got legs and he's aggressive. Hopefully, he'll shore up that midfield. The one thing it is lacking, and it has got a lot of talent in there going forward, is we can be a little open when teams are on the counterattack against us. So hopefully, he will make the difference. He then also continued to talk about Ugarte, saying, Emmanuel Ugarte's likely positioning as the on his likely positioning as the anchor in the engine room. He said, I'm pretty sure that is the thought process behind why they brought him in. They want someone to do the dirty work and put in the work that people don't tend to like to do, but it's a very important job in front of the back four. So again, logical stuff coming from Nicky Butt. Definitely a breath of fresh air when it comes into takes onto Manchester United. Is really just giving his opinion, not trying to be polarizing. I think you could see the obvious difference. I don't know exactly where he spoke when he was doing this, when he did speak and made these comments, but obviously you could tell he was giving a real opinion and not doing it for clicks or, engagement. Or views or attention. And I think on this part here, let's go back to this part real quick. I think we've touched on this where he's got legs, which we've all said we need because Casemiro don't got the legs. And he's aggressive, and he definitely is aggressive. I think I described him last time as a little pit bull in the midfield. He's almost like a Lisandro, but for the midfield. He's not a tall guy. I don't expect him to, win a lot of aerial duels. I will certainly expect him to challenge for it, But from the statistics, he does not win many aerial duels in the midfield. I think it's a harder thing to do, but he is a pit bull. He is aggressive. He likes to try and win that ball back, get his foot on the ball, get in front of the player in the midfield trying to receive the ball. And encouraging things from Nicky Butt, saying that, uh maybe he can shore up that little bit of that we are getting hit on the counterattack. We are a little bit open, which I think was obvious. Well, it was very obvious against Liverpool. I think against Liverpool it was very, very obvious. That's exactly what Liverpool did to us. And we were too open, way, way too open. So 100%. And him commenting here, just talking about that they need somebody to do the dirty work and put in the work that people don't tend to like to do. Well, I think that's um it's probably actually a bigger statement than it's being perceived, because that midfield, I think he's hit it right on the head there, the nail on the head, is that that midfield, there is times where they don't do the dirty work. And whether it's because they don't have the legs or they don't have the mentality or for the position in terms of doing that dirty work, um, I think not in the exact same aspect, but Michael Carrick was like that as well. Michael Carrick, I think, was very underrated. He didn't get the credit he deserved. He did a lot of the dirty work that the rest of the midfield at that time wouldn't do, and he would make up the difference for it. So, in a similar way, I think Ugarte can do those little things that are the dirty work that do probably get overlooked a lot. But it is an important job in front of that back four, and I've mentioned that before as well. Those two center backs and Manuel Ugarte, that little triangle right there, has to become a Bermuda. That ball, when the opponent has that ball and they enter that area, they have to be lost. The opponent needs to get lost. They need to lose the ball. And that area, that little triangle, is going to be very, very important. If we can get at least that part down between the two center backs and Ugarte, that little triangle, I think we're going to see a very, very good difference in what's been going on for us in matches. Axe saying, who would be the crazy fool to take charge of Man United mid-season, going under a lot of pressure, no transfers available, probably facing sacking before next season? Well, it depends, Axe. I know I get what you're saying there, but there's also probably another way to look at it. I mean, number one, the people that are involved in football, in terms of managers, players, etc., etc., we look at it one way, and we mostly look at it from the outside in. And these guys, they have a lot of ego, not in a bad way necessarily, but they have a lot of ego. They have a lot of um, belief in themselves. So I'm sure there's always going to be somebody that will look at that opportunity and say, well, I could do this job. I'm better in this way or that way, or I would make sure that things don't go this way and things don't go that way. um I think there's always somebody that looks at that and would be willing to take it and think they can do it. And they're a little bit on the outside looking in as well, because you never really know what it is, what the problems are and what the issues are until you get into that position and you know what's going on the inside, for sure. But I think, yeah, it has to do a lot probably with the ego and self-belief. I mean, this is, they're involved in high competitive sport. You have to have ego, you have to have self-belief, and you have to think that you can succeed, despite whatever is being reported, I guess, in the media, which they probably tend to not believe too much. um Also, on the fact that you said, under a lot of pressure, but I actually think that, if Ten Hag is being sacked, the season is pretty much then going to be written off in a certain aspect. I mean, Because I think for me, Ten Hag to get sacked, which would mean we would be in an awful position, which would probably almost be impossible to save. So I don't think that if somebody was to come in and take over from whatever point it would be to the end of the season, I don't think I really don't think the pressure would really be on them. Also, it might be an interim. Um, it might be Vanessa Roy or something like that to carry over to the season. If it's not, it might be somebody else that they might just start with and go from there. And you know they would pretty much write off most of it, the rest of the season, and then go, you know, from the summer of 2025 forward with whoever they decide to pick in. So, um, but played as a CDM. He did. He was basically kind of like a CDM at that time. I don't know if you know. Obviously, when he played to now, the roles are a little bit different. But he was that position. Even probably even more of a, I would say at times, sometimes a box to box. You know, he did get forward at times. He did, you know, but he was known for his defensive abilities mostly, not his creative output. But he did go forward when he did play. Richard saying, please hit the like button for us. Yes, please smash the like button if you haven't done it already. We greatly appreciate it. Ray saying, he must speak the past 11 to play. Blah, blah, blah. He must pick the best 11, secure a couple wins, and shut their mouth. Yeah, I mean, he does, but he needs to get the results. I think he's not far off from picking the best 11. I mean, it's only one or two players really. And we need our left backs back, of course, and we do have updates on Luke Shaw and the left back situation, which kind of pissed me off that we got in this update now. Um, but yeah, we're gonna get into that. Move on to the next segment. It's a short segment. Ralph Rangnick has spoken about, as we're all aware, that Ralph Rangnick made his open heart surgery comments about the club shortly before he was let go at the end of that season. And he was asked about these comments, and he opened up a little bit more. And he said that I probably made that statement when the season was almost over, about 2 years ago. It is probably only 2 or 3 weeks since Erik Ten Hag was asked the same thing. So apparently he was asked. I think I missed this because I don't remember him being asked, or I don't remember his response. So, and then he went on to say, then he said that Ten Hag. So he's saying Ten Hag was saying that Ranić was right in his analysis. He said, I don't know how many players they have signed since, but it looks like I was right. Um, so kind of throwing a little dig out there, I guess, not at the club itself per se, but I guess the people that were in charge of the club at the time that didn't like, and even the people, because he did get some hate from the fans for even saying that. Um, Pretty much just say, you know, I was right in my analysis when I said that they need open heart surgery. I always agreed with that comment. Many people agreed with that comment. I think it was obvious. Um, and it still is obvious. I think we did good in this transfer window. I think this is part one of that open heart surgery. I think you know, we still need and we're waiting for part two. The open heart surgery is not complete. Obviously, I think we just started, and things are looking good in terms of the surgery going on, but the surgery is not finished. The surgery still needs to be completed. So yeah, but I missed where Erik Ten Hag was asked about that. But if Erik Ten Hag has agreed and said that Ranić was right in his analysis, I do like that. So you know that's good. Richard saying for managers, United will always be a big job, and that's how they think of it. Exactly, because it is historically a big club, one of the best. You know, I mean, not right now, but in terms of history and just stature and all that. Yeah, absolutely. And there, there's always somebody there that thinks that they can succeed. It's their turn. So always. Xerxes was on great form for Holland. Yes, we had a couple of our players on international duty. They did really, really good. Delo scoring goal. Bruno Fernandez, doing absolutely fantastic. Scoring goals and getting assists. Xerxes as well, scoring goals and getting assists. So that's always good. And Ugarte played as well, and Ugarte did pretty well in the midfield. I caught a little bit of that. And that should be good for him because apparently he didn't have a preseason, so that should be getting his fitness up. Um, and hopefully that's, as much as I don't like the international breaks, maybe it's helped us in terms of the players got another match in right now and it could up their fitness up, their sharpness up, because we did seem like we were lacking sharpness. Um, in the first three matches of the season. So hopefully, some positives coming out of there. Scott McTominay also scored a goal against Portugal on Bruno's birthday, and Bruno did not like that. He commented under Scott McTominay's post saying, I miss you, but don't ever score on my birthday against Portugal ever again. A little bit of banter going on between the two former teammates. So, yeah, international break wasn't that bad. So as much as I dislike it, but it was good. Richard saying he thinks Rannick was having a dig more at people like the Glazers, Arnold, etc. Yeah, that's what I believe. It was pretty much that because they were the ones that stabbed him in the back and kicked him out of the club and basically they they told him he was going to be a consultant of some sort and they basically blamed everything on him for the toxicness and all the things that were going bad with the club. They blamed it on him. They kicked him out of the club. They went back on their word, and they wanted nothing to do with him. So, absolutely, 100%. I think it was a dig at the Glazers and Arnold and whoever else was there at the time. And rightfully so because we know they're morons and they're idiots. And they were doing a horrible job. So, you know, Axe saying those players they play well, they play so well during their international break. I can't wait for them to play very well at Man United. Well, there's always been a problem and weird, and I don't know if it's because of the level of the level of football on the international level. um Different tactics, different setups, you're playing with different players. It's always kind of been a mystery. They go on international break. They play very well. They come to Manchester United and they play like they've never played football. And it's really, really is a struggle. And it would be nice. It would be very nice if we could get their international form at Manchester United. And it was something that I was thinking about the other day. Actually, is that we've we've we have been in a position of late where it's like our squad is a bit flat. If you just look at all the players in terms of performances, like they're all of their performances is flat. We don't have anybody that's really on form or is on fire right now. And that's a little bit concerning. We need to figure out how we're going to get the players to click. We need players to catch form. um I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, there was moments, especially in Ten Hag's first season, where it was like, you're gonna go into a match, that these certain players, they're gonna give you a certain performance. They're gonna give you a 7. They're gonna give you an 8. There was some other players you question, you don't know what they're gonna give you in that match. And then there's other players that you knew that they were probably, not gonna give you a great performance, probably under a 6. And right now, it's just like there's not really too many players that you can pick out and say, well, they're gonna give a 7. I think Garnacho and maybe Diallo are 2. Bruno's been hit or miss. Uh, Xerxes kind of been a hit or miss so far because he's still trying to find his feet. And really his job pertains mostly on scoring goals. The defenders even so. Um, one good game, one not. We really need to find our players to find form, for sure. So, um, on so this is gonna take us into the transfer updates that we got, which I was quite surprised that we got this. It's a little bit of change of pace that we're used to at Manchester United, because usually under the previous people that were running the aspect of this club, of the football club, um transfer market closes, and you don't hear too much noise or too much anything going on in the transfer department. In terms of scouting players and looking at players, you don't hear too much about that until probably around Christmas time, right before the transfer window opens. And yet, since the transfer window has closed, which hasn't been too long ago, we continue to get more and more updates about Manchester United's transfer plans for the future. Mostly, mainly for the summer. It doesn't seem like January is a big thing as of right now. Now, maybe an opportunity pops up in and around January, and we make a move, which I'm hoping for. But a lot of interesting stuff has come from this side of the for the club for the transfers, and we're gonna get into it. And before we do, I'm gonna read out Axe Lord saying, I think that the Man United system is so demanding. I think when they get to their international teams, they're like, okay, I am out. With low stress, less physical demands, and they play so well also. Well, that's a good point. I mean, the demands of Manchester United to win matches, the pressure, the scope, the eyeballs that are on you, the attention, definitely the pressure is definitely increased and elevated at Manchester United. Um, and there is, as you're saying, less quality in the opposition teams as well, for sure. So I think that is definitely a thing. It'd just be nice to see our players, perform at Manchester United the way they perform when they go on international, scoring goals, playing good. Um, you know, so we need to get there somehow. We definitely need to get there somehow, and hopefully we do. Hopefully we do. But let's move on to this. So this little tidbit's gonna take us into the thing from the Muppeteers, who are credible. They're they have a channel, they have outlets, news and all that. Um, they're saying Manchester United's focus is to continue to be on young, high potential players. Which is, I was actually thinking about this, and you know how we were discussing last time about Adrian Rabiot and why they didn't go for him, and how I keep saying that I still do believe that Manchester United need another midfield player. It is concerning to me for the rest of the season, this midfield player that we did not get in. I think we're short in the midfield. Um, and I was thinking, and then this put it even more into my head, that I was like, maybe they didn't go for him, even though he is on a free, because he doesn't really fit the profile that we went for in the summer. We went on young, high potential players. Adrian Rabiot is not young, um, and he's pretty much probably already hit whatever potential he's gonna hit. I don't think you can expect anything different from him. So maybe that's why, but at the same time, I would still say, as a free, and in terms of somebody that a position that we need for this season, I still think you had to go and sign him. If we didn't have money to make a signing for a young, high potential player like they want to do. Um, so I don't know. Maybe that's one of the reasons why. Maybe it's his not his attitude per se, but maybe it's his whole thing with the extra baggage with his mother and all that. So Axe saying new marketing strategy for football press, the overextension of the transfer period, how to one write about Man United, write whatever. Well, I think actually a lot of credible journalists have put out stories today. It almost seems like it's kind of like a brief from the club. Um, you know, in a certain way. It hasn't come directly from the club, but it does seem like it is a brief from the club. And let's get into it right now. Let's start covering this. So, this we're gonna talk about in a different way. I'm not taking this per se in word for word. It's from the Sun. The Sun has been a load of shit for quite some time. I think we're all familiar with that. There was a period where Neil Custis from the Sun did have some type of, I guess, inside information. He was getting things correct. Um, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, and he's been wrong numerous times. So we're not going to listen to the Sun per se. But this did come out today saying that Antony is pushing to leave Manchester United on loan. Fenerbahce are in pole position to secure a deal. Now, I don't think Antony is going anywhere. I don't think Antony's going on loan right now. I think Antony will be us for the remainder of this season, unless maybe something happens in January. I don't think for 1 second Antony is gonna go on loan and we're gonna be down to 3 wingers. I just don't think we're gonna do that. It would be stupid and it would be foolish. We don't have the cover. If Antony goes on loan, we got rid of Sancho. And we would be left with Marcus Rashford, Diallo, and Garnacho. I don't think the club is looking to do such a thing. I think maybe, possibility Fenerbahce might be interested. They might want Antony on loan, but I don't think this is going to happen. I think this is probably a load of shit. Not possibly. It definitely is a load of shit. The reason why we bring this up is because it has been reported that Manchester United are looking for a winger for the summer of 2025. They've identified a couple positions, which is another centre back, a midfielder, and a winger, and a left back. So they've identified 4 positions for the summer of 2025, and one of them was a winger. This was a separate story to this story here. So it is the reason why part of the headline of the title says that Antony is leaving. Because it seems like, and as we spoke about this already, this is probably Antony's last season here. Unless Antony can figure out how to find some form and, prove that he deserves to stay here, which he can't even do right now because he's literally not even getting a chance on the pitch. I believe that summer 2025, I think Antony will be sold, loaned, something, and Manchester United will go for another winger. With Sancho being out of the club and Antony going, we will definitely be looking for another winger. One of those wingers, and I know he plays out wide, but he could play other positions, but one of those wingers is EZE from Crystal Palace, who has been heavily linked today with us. Supposedly he's being monitored heavily by us. And the idea of Manchester United in 2025 is to add one more winger. They've been following and monitoring EZE. He is a player they like, but he is not the only one on the list. They're tracking several wingers, and this is coming from Fabrizio Romano. So we're tracking several wingers. As I mentioned already, Manchester United planning for 2025 to add one more winger. I believe if we're going to add one more winger, I think that spells the end for Antony at Manchester United. So, unless he can turn it around, I think this will probably be his last season. I think there's a couple people at Manchester United that look at Antony probably the same way they view the Casemiro deal. Even the Harry Maguire deal to some extent, but they don't really talk about Harry Maguire in that extent. But just a lot of money. It was a bad price to pay, and it hasn't worked out, and we got to move on from it. Yeah. Ray saying, I think we should buy in January. Don't forget we bought Cantona in January from Leeds. I mean, we bought Bruno Fernandes in January, and that was the only good January signing that we've done in 11 years. I think January is important, and I hope that with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS now in charge, we will actually look to make a good signing in January, one that adds value to the squad, because I think we lose out there when we don't do it. And obviously the Glazers, and whoever they had at CEO at the time, they obviously never liked to do signings in January because it's for first quarter and they view everything as solely a business and not a football club. While other clubs that are operating like football clubs do bring in, whether it's a loan, whether they sign one player, two players in January just to reinforce their squad in the middle of the season. I think it's very important. I think there's not too much talk about January right now because I think they will evaluate what is available and maybe what kind of deal they can do when it gets closer to January. I am kind of expecting for them to do a deal. I don't know how much with the financial aspect at the club. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have. I don't know if it's going to severely restrict us from doing that. I hope it doesn't. I hope they can figure out a way if that is a problem to get around it. But 100%, we should be doing deals in January. We should be doing at least one deal every January minimum. Minimum one deal. It's very, very important. Richard saying, I'm glad we didn't get Rabiot, though. I would have liked to have seen Amrabat staying. Yes. I mean, I would have taken Amrabat over Rabiot. Obviously, the things didn't work out the way we would have hoped. And, it's come to the point where Amrabat was not coming. And Rabiot was probably one of the only choices left. But hold that thought, Richard, because we do have a Rabiot update coming, so hold that thought, and we'll get back to that. And we're gonna continue with the EZE interest. Now, EZE, I like him. He's a good player. Plays for Crystal Palace, very good. He plays in a couple. He can play out wide, but he can also kind of play centrally. Which kind of fits that Ten Hag model of he likes there's a word for it, but I'm going to call them multitaskers. He likes multitaskers. He likes people that, you can play them on the wing. They can also play another position if you need it. So he kind of fits that bill. The other update was this coming from Man United Men, which is that EZE has a 68 million release clause in his Crystal Palace contract that can be triggered next year. So if we're going to want EZE, there's a 68 million release clause. That might be a lot of money, but at the same time, Premier League player, Premier League proven, if you believe in that stuff, which it should be all right, right? And there's the tax. So I think it's not the worst fee. But there are other players out there that maybe you can argue that have a similar ability to EZE that we could get them for maybe half of the price of that. So I guess it depends the route that the club want to go down. But if you do look at it in one way, I mean, when Manchester City was created in 2012 or 2008, whenever they got bought, whatever it was, right? And they started making their moves. They did do a lot of poaching from the Premier League from other teams. It did help them get better to a certain aspect in a way. They were going around, they were poaching a lot of players from teams inside of the Premier League. And it did help improve their squad probably rather quickly since they were already used to playing in the Premier League. They knew what they were getting and they knew what they were paying for. So I like EZE. I think EZE is a good player. I wouldn't necessarily be against this signing for this price, but again, it would depend on the budget we have and what impact that would have to the budget and the rest of our transfer plans in terms of, I'm probably looking at we need to sign another 5 players. That would be 10 players in total. That's basically a brand new starting 11, bar the goalkeeper. And so I think that's definitely important. EZE also, because this is coming from Sam Luckers, so you can see that this is coming from a lot of credible people and different angles on all the takes of EZE. EZE is among the forwards Manchester United are monitoring ahead of a probable reinforcement on the flanks next year. So chiming in there. Now we can get on to a name that some of you maybe heard. I haven't heard of him, but very interesting story here. That has to fit in uh with the winger position that has also come out today. And there is a player named Asane Dio Duane. He is a winger. Is somebody that Manchester United have tracked for a long time. They are interested. This is coming from the Muppeteers. Now, I had to do a little bit of research on this guy because I am not familiar with him. I've never seen him play. Um, so, the research that I got is he's born September 7th, 2005. He's Senegal or Senegalese. Um, he's playing for Real Betis in La Liga, and some of the insights into his abilities and a profile as a player, his position and playing style. Dio primarily operates as a winger, capable of playing on both flanks, but is often utilized on the right. He's known for his pace, dribbling, skills, and ability in one-on-one situations, making him a significant threat in transition. His playing style has evolved from a midfielder to a winger, showcasing his versatility and adaptability on the pitch. His physical attributes, he's standing at 1.85 meters, which is 6 feet and 1 inch, so he's pretty tall, especially for a winger. His height gives him an advantage in aerial duels, which is somewhat unusual for wingers, but adds to his versatility as a player who can also play centrally if needed. Technical skills has been praised for his ball carrying abilities, exquisite combination play, and an improving sense of positioning within the box. His dribbling is described as tricky, and he possesses super ball striking capabilities, which contribute to his goal scoring efficiency. Uh, his potential has been recognized with comparisons to other top wing prospects, and there's an excitement about his capacity for growth, especially in decision making and overall game intelligence as he gains more experience. Well, I'll tell you what, this is a very good description, I guess, and insight. Because if they're trying to sell me this player, they sold me. I mean, number one thing, his um decision making and overall game intelligence, which is something that I keep talking about that we seem to really be lacking when we're on the pitch. We could definitely use some of that. So just for that alone, if that's true, and that's exactly what it is, I'm being sold on this player already immediately, and I haven't seen him kick a ball. So um since making his debut for Real Betis, Dio has shown rapid adaptation to professional football. His initial performances have been promising, with goals in both the Liga and European competitions shortly after his debut. This indicates not just raw talent, but an ability to perform under pressure. Um, He's known for his effort in every play, helping defensively, which also ticks more boxes, and always pushing to make something happen offensively. That's another box ticked, something that I definitely like, something that I love that I see in Garnacho and Diallo. So, he might, if we do go for him, sounds like he can fit in very, very, very well. Again, 6'1" for a winger, very unusual. And if he has pace, that's even more unusual, but we will take that. Uh, and and while he is born in Senegal, he has represented Spain at the youth levels, respecting his dual nationality and the global nature of yeah. So, in summary, Diallo stands out for his dynamic wing play, physical attributes, technical skills, and high potential for growth. And this is why Manchester United are taking a look at this player here. Sounds very exciting. And again, I like this. I like this. I did mention this at one point early on, at some point when INEOS took over, and I said I would love if we can scout and find players, and look to bring in and buy players like this for Manchester United. I think it's something that we need to do. Young, high potential players, as we mentioned in the beginning of the show. Um, Probably, you know, you look at this kid and you compare him to Eze, and it's like, okay, he's playing in the Liga, so he's not Premier League proven, but he probably costs anywhere from half to three quarters less than Eze does. So this is something that I was talking about that is important that INEOS are doing at Manchester United. We are looking at top targets, and we don't want to say that one target's A, one target's B. But they all fit a profile, a certain profile for the team, and you can do different deals if you need to for any reason. Could be solely based on price, could be based on other things, but the important thing is that we have a set idea and philosophy on the players that we are looking for, and that they are similar, so that if we do go down the path where it's choice A and choice B and choice C, well, if you don't get choice A, choice B is very similar to choice A. Therefore, it's like you didn't really miss out too much. I think one of the problems Manchester United used to have, which I don't think we will have anymore, is we had choice A, and choice B would be a completely different profile of player to choice A. So when we wouldn't get choice A, and we get choice B, and choice B wouldn't work, it would look really, really bad because there were two different profile of players for the position that we were going to get. And choice A was the correct profile, and choice B was the wrong profile. And choice C would probably be another different profile, and it would be wrong as well. So I like how Manchester United are moving right now in terms of this. His ability to play on both sides would excite me. Yes, definitely for sure. The more flexibility we have, in terms of positions, the better for the squad. Now, Richard, we're gonna get into what you mentioned before, which is the Rabiot interest. And it's just a small little update, but and we have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt, I guess, because it is coming from the Daily Star, which they're not the Sun, but they're not the most reputable. So Manchester United bosses are set to hold talks with Adrian Rabiot as Erik Ten Hag looks to strengthen his midfield options ahead of what will prove to be a long and demanding season. So apparently we might be able to still get Rabiot. I don't know how true this is. This is the only update I've seen on this. Could just be BS. But very, very interesting that this has come up today. Because I've been asking and saying that, we do need to still, we are short in the midfield. And if we can sign somebody on a free, which we can no longer sign somebody on a loan, but if we can sign somebody on a free, specifically Adrian Rabiot, because he's probably the best option out there, I would definitely be looking into signing at Adrian Rabiot. I think he will help us immensely, especially this season. But we have spoken about how he doesn't necessarily fit the profile. So I guess it would depend on the demands he's asking for. If he's asking for a ridiculously high wage, which probably wouldn't be him, it would be his agent mother. If she goes into the negotiations and she's asking for some ridiculously high wage because he's a free, this deal will not happen because Sir Jim Ratcliffe and co are not going to give Adrian Rabiot anywhere north of 200,000 a week, probably. Given his age, and probably the difficulty of then moving him on after a certain point, given his age, and the length of contract, they're probably not too fond of doing this deal. They want to look at younger players with high potential, and he is not one of those. But at the same time, we are short in that midfield, and we could use him. So interesting to see what's going to happen here. Maybe we'll get further updates. We will see if there's any truth to this, and we will keep an eye out on for that. You could get him because he is on a free. This is what I'm saying. But there's probably different couple things that are being looked at in terms of that INEOS do want the younger, high potential players. He's not one of those. And it probably depends on the demands that his agent mother is going to make. You know, his age and his mother could go in the discussions with people at Manchester United and say, well, he's on a free. He's highly talented. You don't have to pay for his transfer fee. We want 300,000 a week. We want 350,000 a week. They're not going to do that deal. They're not going to do that. They're looking to significantly lower the wage bill at Manchester United, and they've done so already with a few players. Casemiro being one of them. I know for a fact they're very unhappy that he's on those wages. Marcus Rashford is obviously Marcus Rashford, and there's nothing they're going to do about that right now. Maybe in the summer, they might look to move him on if they think that's, depends how the season goes, and what he's feeling. But yeah, I mean, if she comes in and he's desperate for a move, and he agrees to maybe 150,000 a week, I think it's a possibility. I think if she goes in there and she's asking for 300,000 a week, I think they're gonna tell her and him to get lost. So let's see what happens. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. That's very interesting. I would love if we could get him in. And the wages are good. I would love, because I think it will. I think it really will help us. I think it will help us immensely. For this season, I think we really do need it. We really do need it, and he's not a bad player. So, um, you know. Asking if he's another Pogba. Is this article bullshit? I don't know. I would sign him for 130,000 a week, plus 50% fine potential if his mother gets an eye. Well, that would be a good clause to put in there. Your mother gets annoying, we fine you 50% of your wages. Yeah, that I would definitely throw that in there. But for sure, I don't think he's another Pogba per se. Because he was at the club. He left us for free. We tried to give him a new contract. It didn't work out. Then we ended up re-signing him for 100 million. There was a lot of controversy around that in terms of the fact that, he was with us already. He left. We re-signed him for 100 million, which was the record at the time. And it was just a bad look all around. Rabiot, obviously, never been at Manchester United. We're getting him on a free. Hopefully, the wages, not hopefully, they won't be. So, again, something like that, I would sign him for 130,000 a week or something, or a little bit more, maybe 180. Somewhere around that. Daniel Kassar, how you doing, buddy? How's everything? Daniel saying you don't need that geezer, bro. That's why we removed him. Yes, for anybody, Daniel is a Juventus fan, so he actually knows, and actually could probably give us some insight into Rabiot. I mean, we know he's old. I would actually argue with you, Daniel, with the current situation that we're in. We do kind of need him, because we do need a midfield player. And we can't sign anybody right now, other than basically him, because he is a free agent. But if you can enlighten us to his time at Juventus, I mean, in terms of maybe performances, was he a good player? Was there a lot of off-field issues? He isn't a reliable player. Is it him that isn't a reliable player, or is it in terms of performances? Oh, it's not great. We need reliable, because right now, Casemiro isn't too reliable. I don't know. Maybe we have to stay away from him then, unfortunately. Again, maybe, the deal that we do can't depend on him to do good. No, that's not good. That's the opposite of what we need. We need him to do good. We need him to be reliable. Again, still a hard position to be put in here, though, because we are missing a player in that position. So then you look at it and you go, okay, if we're taking Daniel's word for what he's saying, right? And you can't, he's not reliable in terms of performances. You don't know what you're going to get from him. Um, do you take the chance on bringing him in because he's better than nobody, or do you say that's not what we need? Um, that's not what we need, and you just continue on the way the squad is now without him, and you move forward. Uh, I think more of my bigger issue would probably be his personality. I think like Ray is alluding here to, saying don't buy another big head. That would probably concern me a little bit more than maybe, I guess, the consistency of his performances. If he is an issue off of the field, if he is a big head, if his personality isn't great, and we know his mother is crazy, which his agent. Um, but I'm more interested in the personality of the player. If he is a problem in that aspect, I won't want him. He is a big head, says Daniel. Then I'm probably gonna lean more towards I don't want him coming. Didn't you see what he said to Yamal? I seen him say so. Yeah, yeah, that's true. He did say those stupid comments. And then got embarrassed by Spain. That's true. That's true. I probably don't want him to come though. Well, Ray's saying that he wants play another kid in the midfield, play the kids. And Richard saying that I also thought that Toby Collier looked very unready in the Liverpool game, but maybe that is just because how big the game was. Well, I agree with you, Richard. He looked very unready. But I did say that for those circumstances, number one, the team wasn't playing good. So nobody in the team was playing good. It was a tough ask, and I think it was very unfair to it's very unfair to judge Collier in that situation. You're coming off of the bench, and maybe he isn't ready per se. And if you're not ready, you're coming into that match. It's a tough match. The team is losing. The team's not playing well, and it's a hard ass to play against Liverpool. They're a very good high intensity pressing team. It was always going to be difficult. I'm interested to see Collier come and play in a couple other matches, maybe against some of the smaller teams. I would have liked to see him maybe feature against a Fulham or a Brighton, see how he handles himself in those situations. But maybe we do just have to go down the path of maybe promoting another youth player as well. So I know you're not criticizing, Richard. I'm going on to your point, for sure. But yeah, put the kids when the game was already turned into shit. What do you expect from the kid? I mean, the kid could still do something, but it's just it's a big ask, and it's more unlikely that they're going to perform um well, because it's a tough environment to go into and try and do something. But again, sometimes, I mean, we saw it with Kobe, where there were times where the team wasn't good or whatever. Kobe did go in there, and you could see that Kobe did take his chance. I mean, even Garnacho did it once or twice as well in the beginning. So they can still show something, but I think it's just unfair to make a total decision on Collier based off of just that performance. He did look unready. Um, but again, the circumstances surrounding the match, it's very, very difficult. Um, well, what about Dan Gore? Well, Dan Gore, I would be interested in Dan Gore. I'm pretty sure Dan Gore is still injured though, so we would have to wait on Dan Gore. I don't think Dan Gore is back yet. He did suffer that weird, strange injury. Did he have surgery? I'm pretty sure he did. Um, so if he's available, I'm interested in Dan Gore, and I'd like to see what he can show. I'm all for giving them an opportunity. I'm all for giving them chances. I want to see what they can give. I want to see what they can provide. I want to see if maybe they are ready. Given some opportunities, couple games, couple minutes here and there. I want to see what they can do in the first squad against, professional teams in that aspect. Um, but it's not the most, how do I put this? It's not the most concrete option in terms of, because we don't know how they're gonna do, if they're ready, if they're not ready. What if they're both not ready? What if they're both, what if they both play few matches, few minutes, and they really don't look good against some opposition that you would say, well, you need to be putting in some type of a performance there. Then we end up with, well, they're both not ready, and then we have nobody to really come in there. Um, Daniel saying just focus on Ugarte and Manu. I mean, that's what we're gonna do. My thing is, Daniel, is that we don't have the depth per se in that position. I mean, we have Ugarte, we have Manu, there's Casemiro who would be a backup. And other than that, we're kind of short in that aspect. I mean, there's Bruno who plays attacking mid. There's Mount that plays, you would probably say, more of an attacking mid, but could probably play box to box. But he's unreliable because he's keeps picking up injuries and missing matches. And there's Christian Eriksen, who I don't think can really play the box to box role too well. He's pretty old, and he's a little bit unreliable. So, that's why we're talking about this. And then yeah, Gore has the shoulder injury. Um, and Axe saying, remember how some people were hyped for Oyeledi, and then they sold him. Collier came from the same team, but do you think he was ways ahead of Oyeledi? Because otherwise he will be sold too. I don't know. Listen, some players, and it depends. I mean, it depends on the player as well as the club. But some players, I mean, listen, Collier is 20. Some players are late bloomers. I think the perception around players though is like, if you're not like Lamine Yamal, if you're not like already showing something at 18 and 19 years old, then you're breaking into the first team, kind of like Kobe Mainu, kind of like Garnacho, then you're not good enough. But in reality, it's probably that you're just not going to be in the discussion of a superstar. You know what I mean? Like, the way I see Collier, I don't think he's gonna be a top five midfielder in the world. I think Kobe Mainu can achieve that. I don't think Collier is going to be able to achieve that. But does that mean that Collier is not going to be a good player? Does that mean that he's not going to have something to provide, to be part of the squad, and put in good performances? I don't think so. I think you can be a little bit of a late bloomer and you can add value to a squad. I just don't think Collier has that to be a superstar in the midfield. But that doesn't mean that he won't be a good player to have on your squad, whether he's becomes a starter or he would be a squad player. um but maybe he does get sold. I guess it really depends on how things go from now until the end of the season. I mean, if it doesn't seem like he can really add some value when he does get opportunities, then maybe they will look to sell him. Maybe he might want to leave as well. I don't know. I don't know. Um, Daniel saying, but I'm gonna be real. Getting Rabiot for free would kind of be worth the gamble for depth, but I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of a hard decision. It goes against what we've kind of been looking for in terms of transfers. Um, where we've been looking at young profiled players with high potential. But he is on a free, so it kind of makes it a little bit enticing because we're not paying a transfer fee for it. Maybe we give him a 2-year contract or something. I don't know. Um, but this could just be a bunch of nonsense as well. I mean, he is there. He is sitting there available. So we do got to see, what happens with this story. I don't know. Very torn. Very torn. At one point, we do need him for depth. Another point, there's a lot of extra shit in terms of his attitude, his crazy mother agent, we don't need another clown show at Manchester United. So that puts me off. But at the point that he is probably the only available option we have to get somebody in from now till probably January. Um, yeah. Axe saying, yeah, but I'm saying at this point, what exactly Collier has that Oyeledi doesn't? I don't know. Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know. I mean, the manager's seen something in Collier that Oyeledi didn't apparently. Because he likes Collier, he's trying to put him in and around the team. He is on the bench. Um, so I'm not too sure. I haven't seen it yet. I hope I do see it. We need to see him feature a little bit more to really see. So I don't know, Axe. It's a good question. I'm just not sure at this moment. Richard saying I think that Toby is very much be a Scott McTominay quality player. I mean, he could be. That's kind of what I was alluding to. I mean, he could add. Now, hopefully, he's a little bit more technically gifted. With the ball in his feet than Scott McTominay. Because as we know, Scott was very limited. Um, but you do need squad players, and it doesn't mean that he can't ever make it into the squad. I just don't think from what I've seen so far, he doesn't seem like he is superstar level. Like he is not going to be a Jude Bellingham. And he's not going to be what I think Kobe Mainu can become. But I think he does still have the potential to become a very very good player for the squad. But let's see what happens on that front. Um, Daniel saying he wanted Juve to pay him 9.5 million per season. Not even our best players get paid that. Yeah, that's his agent. That's his agent mother. She's crazy. She's psychotic. And this is what I was saying. Like, you know, we're set to hold talks with him. If his mother is asking for 9.5 million per season or something stupid like that, we're not gonna do that deal. We're gonna tell them to f off. If they want to agree to something that we were talking about, probably like 150K a week, maybe 180. I don't think they'll go over 200K a week. Then maybe there's a deal that we could be made there. So we gotta see. We gotta see. Let's move on because there's a couple more topics that we got to get into with the transfers because there was actually a lot of transfer news coming today. This short little one, well, they kind of go hand in hand. So this update came. Manchester United are expected to keep tracking Jared Branthwaite, and that comes from Samuel Luckhurst. So we are still interested in Jared Branthwaite. Obviously, this will also be affected by what happens to Everton. My money right now is Everton is probably going to go get relegated. They look very, very bad. It looks very, very dysfunctional. Now, maybe they sack Sean Dyche and they get in another manager and he's able to turn things around. But at the current situation, the current form that they're in, and the disaster that's going on at Everton Football Club, I have money on them to be relegated by the end of the season. If they're relegated, Jared Branthwaite will be probably on an absolute bargain of a deal. And then we can all laugh at Everton for not negotiating well with us earlier when we were trying to buy him. Because we will definitely get him for like 40 million or something at that point. But we are still monitoring and keeping eyes on Jared Branthwaite. He's definitely still a target. Grace is in here, our wonderful moderator. Shout out, Grace. How you doing? And this story just goes hand in hand with this because apparently, according to Samuel Luckhurst, Victor Lindelof will be released by Manchester United at the end of the season if he stays beyond January. And then he also went on to say it's likely to be Johnny Evans' final season of playing career, which is something that I said, and I think we said last show, that I expect Johnny Evans to go. I think this is his last season playing. I think he will finally retire. So I think Johnny Evans will be gone. And I expect Victor Lindelof to be one of the people. Like Samuel Lucker said, that if he is still here beyond January, I expect him to go in the summer. So the center back, monitoring and priority for the summer of 2025 makes perfect sense because we're going to lose another two center backs, potentially three, depends what happens with Harry Maguire. But yeah, definitely I think, we're going to be in for, I think this all fits together very good. And this is why I'm trying to say it seems like it's a brief from the club, because this isn't mostly just random shitty outlets or random people you haven't heard of. These are pretty much very credible people putting out these type of stories, and it's not just like pure, I guess, say speculation. The stories do fit into one another in terms of Manchester United are looking at this and this position, this and this is happening, and we're also monitoring this and this player. So it does seem like it is a brief coming out of the club today, which I was actually kind of surprised about. Like I said, we're not used to this. We're not used to this. Usually the transfer window closes. We don't hear a peep about transfers very much. I think these were very big updates today. Very, things that we're not usually accustomed to. And I think we're going to get more of these as time goes along, because it seems like it's coming out of INEOS, updating pretty much the fans indirectly without them making official statements, but it is them putting these I guess stories out there. Axe saying the majority of Man United fans were shitting on Scott, so that would be terrible for Collier. I mean, yeah, Scott would get a lot of hate in certain. Listen, Scott as a squad player, I was okay with. I think for a big part of time, the problem was Scott McTominay was a starter, and we needed more than that. We needed more from him, and he just was too far inconsistently, wasn't able to give us that, and therefore that leads to a lot of hate because people don't want to see him starting, and he's starting, and then the player goes on to the hate goes on to the player. It's kind of like Marcus Rashford right now. I think Marcus Rashford is getting a lot of hate because fans are really fed up with his performances, rightfully so. But it's not really Marcus Rashford's fault that he keeps getting picked. Uh, but I think some of the hate that's going on to Rashford is because he continues to get picked, and fans would like to see him benched and see other players get picked. So it leads to an increase of hate indirectly. Now while obviously they can control the performance they put in because that's on them. Um, when they get picked and fans are tired of seeing them starting when they don't believe they deserve to be starting, that's where the increase of hate comes into. Um, Johnny Evans in 2024, Manchester United are back. Lindelof, my precious, yes, Axel, big Lindelof guy. Richard saying, I think Johnny very much knows he can't do it anymore, but I hope he gets a job as a coach. Yeah, I mean, listen, he was gonna retire. He was gonna retire before we came for him, and I think he took the opportunity to come to Manchester United. I think surprisingly last season, surprisingly for me, because I thought he was absolutely finished, and I was banging my head against the wall as to how we signed the guy that used to be at Manchester United, was with the team that got relegated, was about to retire, and we signed him as one of our backups. But he performed very, very well last season. He was very, very solid in a lot of matches. And with the injury crisis that we had, thank God we had him because he did save our ass multiple times. But he is picking up a lot of injuries here and there, and it does look like it is to the end for him, for sure. Now, another position that we're going to get into that has been identified from Manchester United. So we spoke on the winger. We've spoken on the midfield that they are definitely still looking at midfields. And with the Rabiot interest, they are expecting Casemiro to go. And definitely Christian Eriksen. So the midfield spot is again another position that they are looking to identify. I didn't see there might be one or two players, and we're gonna get to that at the end. But one of the positions that was identified is this right here, um, which says Jim Ratcliffe and other board members are seeing Luke Shaw as an unreliable and unsustainable first choice candidate. He will enter a defining moment in his United career when he fully recovers from his calf injury in the coming weeks. That was followed up by another story, well, coming from the same guy on Give Me Sports, saying Manchester United have decided that signing a left back cover for Shaw is a top priority in January, with Anthony Robinson, Milos Kerkez, and Bradley Lacko are all on the list. So Manchester United in for a left back, which the story kind of pissed me off because we did talk about how we needed a center back and we did talk about how we needed another midfielder. I guess in the same time they are aware of these positions, so we can actually be happy and positive that at least they're aware and they're not like naive and saying like, no, we're actually good. They were aware. They just prioritized the positions and the players that we got in before these positions. And I guess they did all they can do with the circumstances that we had surrounding the club. Um, Now Robinson, I seen him play against us, and I seen him in the other two matches that they played, and he looks very, very, very good, very, very exciting. I would actually, I would like him, if we were to get him as a target. I think, the way he plays is very exciting. Um, and I like the attacking intent and mentality from him. Also, his ability is seems very, very good. Now, I do have profiles on these players as well. If you guys want to get into that, I can't see the chat, so keep chatting away. I'm not ignoring you, but I can't see um for right now. So give me that. Robinson, as we probably know a lot more about, left back, plays for Fulham. Has been highlighted for his exceptional defensive stats, leading in interceptions and defensive actions in the Premier League, showcasing his ability to read the game and intercept plays effectively. His attacking contribution, he's also noted for the attacking contribution, leading in several offensive categories like chances created, successful crosses, and key passes. His ability to deliver accurate crosses and make progressive passes indicates a strong set piece delivery and involvement in build up play, which is definitely what we need. And his consistency and a fitness, which would, go, I guess, against Luke Shaw. His record of starts and his health throughout the season underline his reliability and fitness, crucial for a defender who needs to be a regular starter. Um, he won Fulham's Player of the Season award, which reflects his value to the team, and not just the numbers, but in the overall team performance. Milos Kerkez, obviously another left back. He He's a young age, shows promise, particularly in his crossing and dribbling abilities. His performance in a match against Anderschlat highlighted his all-around defensive contribution, including tackles, interceptions, and aerial duels. While his tackling has been noted as an area for improvement, his technical skills in dribbling and crossing suggest a player with significant potential for growth, especially in a more structured environment or with further experience. And then finally, the profile on the last guy, which I never even heard of, to be quite honest, which is Bradley Lacko. He plays for Brest in France, in League One. He's seen as a high potential player, especially within, I guess he was part of Chelsea's youth setup. Lacko's profile suggests he's viewed as someone who could develop into one of the world's top left backs. His inclusion in discussions for potential transfers indicates recognition of his talent. Unlike Robinson and Kerkez, there's less public data on Lacko's specific on field contributions and statistics, which might reflect his younger age or less exposure at the highest levels. However, his mention alongside established names suggests scouts and clubs see something special in his skill set. All three players have been linked with moves to top clubs like Chelsea, Manchester United, and Liverpool, indicating a high market value. And their profiles fit the modern fullback role, where defensive solidity in matched with significant contributions in attack, reflecting the tactical evolution of the position. Yes, that's all good. So based off of that, I mean, Robinson sounds like the top target. He sounds like the best. Um, Obviously, and we've seen more of him. I've definitely seen more of him. Again, another Premier League proven, which kind of fits the profile that we're kind of looking at. It seems like we have our top targets are Premier League proven players: Branthwaite, Robinson, Eze. Um, they're gonna cost a little bit more. They're gonna be a little bit more expensive than if, I guess, you go for a Milos Kerkez or Bradley Lacko. But I think one of the important things that was touched on when we were going through their player profiles is that, again, as I said before, the player profile for all three of these guys are very, very similar, if not the same. They are almost identical players. Obviously, they have some differences. Some players are a little bit more established in certain areas. Some players have a little bit more experience in terms of playing. But again, it's important to hit on the fact that whereas before we were either had one target or no targets, or we had seven different targets that were all different profile of player, we now have targets of players that have the same profile, so that if we can't get one or we don't get the first one, the second one is basically the same players, so that way we are not ending up with a player that does not fit the profile that the club needs. So again, I'm liking the transfer targets that INEOS are getting and looking at and scouting. And I think this is very, very exciting and very, very promising going forward when we continue to build out the rest of the squad, because we've done part one of the open heart surgery. Part two will come in the summer of 2025. January 2025 can be a stabilization of the part one of open heart surgery. And then we move from there. Now let me get to the chat because I missed everything you guys were saying. So Grace was saying if we had got rid of Casemiro and brought in Agarte and kept McTominay, we would have still had only one DM. Scott had to go for us to bring in a new midfielder, and we have to sell players to make room. Absolutely. That's something that I've been seeing. The revisionism from United fans online is absolutely crazy. And not all United fans, but there are a lot of United fans out there. I mean, Scott McTominay scores a goal for Scotland. And all of a sudden, I see people saying, we made a mistake getting rid of Scott McTominay. It was a mistake. We could have used him. We needed him. And meanwhile, they were literally saying weeks before that, we need to sell Scott McTominay so we could get Agarte in. It was pretty obvious. Um, you know, we're getting hurt by the fact that McTominay leaves a void in the fact of that we're missing a squad player. But in terms of getting Manuel Ugarte in, who I think is in a player that plays in the more important position, a key position, and is going to add key value, and his ability is way more important. That it was way more important that we got him in. And like Grace mentioned, even if we did do the opposite way, where we got rid of Casemiro, got Agarte in, and then had Scott, it still doesn't solve the problem, the fact of that we would only have one real CDM, which would still be an issue, because you can't play Ugarte for 47 matches straight and think that that's going to work. And we all know that Scott can't play there. So I think that the decision to get rid of Scott and get Ugarte, I think, was good. We needed to get just a replacement squad player for Scott. whether it was a loan, because clearly we didn't have the money. So whether it was a loan or a free, that was what we messed up on. We should have done that. I would have done a loan. I don't see why we couldn't have done a loan per se. Maybe a loan with an option to buy with one of our targets. That way he could come in, get integrated, play a season. We could see what they're about. If we like them, we end up playing. We end up paying for the next summer. Um, I'm sure they looked at that. I'm not trying to say that maybe in the past I would say they definitely didn't do it because they're incompetent, but they're not incompetent. So I'm sure they looked at that aspect, and maybe it just wasn't a possibility at the time. Um, for the new players, we can't be sentimental. No, we can't be sentimental, but we do have to give them a grace period. Um, grace. We got to give them a grace. Well, at least I will. I will. I always do. Um, there's no sentimentality too much on my end. I do have maybe some favorite players. And I do think that some players are more important than others, and I think that they add some value here and there. But the new players, I always give them a grace period. One season, especially if you're coming from outside of the Premier League. For sure, one season. Second season, I expect you to step it up. I expect you to be playing, well, putting in good performances, and showing your money's worth. Um, Fulham left back is really good. I agree with you there, Grace. Axe says Scott was his buddy, the one and only McTominay. He'll be loved forever. I love your love for McTominay. It's awesome. Axe saying just play Almas, another player. Maybe he's not ready, but we could. But yeah, this update is a little bit interesting solely for the fact of that they're looking at Luke Shaw, and obviously we said that he's never completed a season. He has been injured every single season and missed multiple amounts of matches since the year he was signed for Manchester United to the current year. I believe that's 11 years, 11 seasons straight. He has never completed a full season. He has missed multiple matches. So we all know the unreliability of Luke Shaw, unfortunately, due to his injury problems. And he is a very good player when he's able to stay fit and gain consistency and form. Um, but the club is saying that we can't be having that with our starting left back. So either he's going to become a backup, or he's going to be sold, and we are going to bring in a new starting left back. And then there's the issue of Malacia, because I don't know what they want to do per se with Malacia. I don't know how it's gonna go for Malacia. He should be back very soon. If he's not, I think he has a little bit left to go, but he is getting close to coming back. So I guess we're gonna have to see what happens on that front with Malacia, because if he's able to stay fit, doesn't get re-injured, anything serious, doesn't have a lengthy spell out, maybe Malacia stays. But then it also comes down to the performances he puts in, because if he plays very badly, they might look to move him on as well. And the hierarchy of the left back would then become new signing, um, one of probably Shaw, Malacia, sold, and then Harry Amos. I don't. I think the problem is when you look at Harry Amos and then you look at Robinson or even Kirkez, because I am familiar with Kirkez. Bradley, I can't tell you. Um, Amos compared to Robinson and Amos compared to Kirkez, he is still off the mark compared to what they can offer to us in the immediate future, or in the immediate present. Um, so while I do agree, I would like to see Amos get minutes and see what he can offer us, and see if maybe he can get that position. That left back position is kind of a mess that needs to be sorted, and we need to figure it out in terms of starter, backup, and then potential future prospect. So let's see. Um, Axe saying I saw him playing for Hungary. He isn't fit for Man United, I believe. He plays in Brest. LOL. Yeah. I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming when I said it. Grace saying go for Robinson. He has the experience and can come straight in. Well, that is one of the positives, Grace, with a player like Robinson or a player like Eze or a player like Branthwaite. Obviously, always one of the negatives is the price tag that will come with that. Is going to be more expensive than the other options. Um, and it's probably a hardened deal to negotiate because clubs like Fulham or Everton or Crystal Palace, they kind of see it in the fact that we are selling you a player that is going to play against us at some point, which can hurt us. With the fact that we play you guys twice a year, which can affect 6 points, which can make or break our season. So they do tend to try and charge a lot more money. Um, but again, I do like the profile of the player that we are looking at. So whatever it comes down to, if we have the money for it and it doesn't affect our transfer, if it doesn't affect our transfer plan in terms of we overspent too much money on one player, so now we can't get the other position that we need, I'm all for it. If it does, unfortunately, then we have to be a little bit smarter and figure out how to, which position is actually the more important position to splurge the more money and then get the probably B targets who are going to cost us less with the same profile of player in the other positions. Like, for example, which I could ask you guys right now. If you're looking at this, and we've already talked about, so there's Eze, who's the winger. Um, there's the midfield options, which we don't really have potential replacements right now on the list. But then there's Eze, there's Branthwaite, and then there's okay, let's do it this way. There's Eze, there's Branthwaite, and there's Robinson, right? Eze's the winger, Branthwaite the centre back, and Robinson left back. So you have three Premier League players. And we can only get one of those Premier League players for that specific position because they're gonna cost the most. Who would you pick out of those three players? Like, who do you think is the in the priority position that we need, that we would have to splurge a higher amount of money on that Premier League player for that specific position? Because I think it's not an easy decision to make. Um, and it's quite I think it's quite difficult to pick between those three if you're gonna say you can only buy as a Branthwaite or Robinson, and once you pick one of them, the remaining positions you have to get a backup. You have to get a backup in terms of either if you take Branthwaite, you would have to go get Kirkez. If you take Eze, um, then you can't get Branthwaite. You got to get somebody else. Or if you take Robinson, then you would have to go for the winger that we spoke about, Asana Diallo. For me, I'll give you mine. Thinking about it, uh, I think personally, right? I think personally, the center back position is probably the least important as of right now in terms of we would have to splurge the cash on Branthwaite if Everton don't get relegated, let's say, and they still hold out for whatever it is, 65 million. And it would lead me down to between Eze and Robinson. Eze obviously has a 68 million release clause or something like that. So keep that in mind. Robinson, we're unsure of what he would cost, but I would assume it's less than that. Um, so probably, I would probably, I would probably, well, we do need help in the attacking output. I don't know. It's a very hard. I would probably go for Robinson, to be quite honest. Um I think it probably won't be as much money as we think compared to, like, if you compare it to Eze, because Eze is a 68 million release clause. So I think it would probably be good to buy. And like Axe is saying, pay. He would pick non, and he would pay 65 million for Hernandez from AC Milan. Um, I think we could get. I actually think we could get Robinson for less than 65 million, and then probably help us out elsewhere. So I think Robinson would probably be the better target right now. Although I would give strong consideration to Eze, because I think he's a very good player. And we do need somebody like him. In terms of attacking and creative output. Um, so yeah. And you guys are saying, Axe is saying that he would rather trust in Almas than in any of those players. Just his take. He's not a scout. Those opinions look like a second tier or below. Hopefully, they fit the system. Well, I think they do fit the system. I think the profile of all the players fit what they are looking for the system. So I don't think you have to worry about that, Axe. Um, and I just think that some of them are a little bit more developed than others. Some of them probably need a little bit more work than, the main target, and then there's the other targets that probably are lacking a little bit, but the profile is the same. So I don't think you have to worry about the profile. Like I was saying, like old Manchester United, we'd have Anton Robinson, and then we'd have who's a left back, fucking like uh like Marcus Alonso or something, who's like old and finished and doesn't fit the profile of what we're looking for. You know what I mean? Something like that. Like it would be something weird, or just a left back that is not very good at attacking, doesn't help in the way that Anton Robinson would. Um, but I don't think we don't necessarily have to worry about that anymore, because it seems like what we have, um, what we're looking at, they all are pretty much there. But they are younger players with high potential. So, they are not by no means any of them pretty much the finished article. I mean, even Eze is a younger player with a higher potential. He just happens to have a lot of Premier League experience under his belt compared to some of the other targets. But all of them are. I mean, Branthwaite is fairly young, and um, Rich is saying out of the three, the only one I would consider is Robinson. Gray saying the second message was part of the first message. I could only write so much. She picks Robinson. Rich is saying I think it has to be the left back. Yeah. Gray saying Robinson would start, as it might not, as Rashford will probably start, and we have Martinez who starts at left center back. If we need a midfielder, we should go for the Scottish lad from Napoli. He has potential. I heard he's really good, Grace. I heard that Scottish lad is really good, actually. Um, we should definitely be looking at him. He's a young guy. He's got high potential for sure. He's a young lad. From Scotland. He's definitely got high potential for the future. Um, just starting out in his career. Definitely, I think we should probably be looking at him if we need a midfielder. 100%. Just a little bit of comedy here. Love the sarcasm. Love the sarcasm. Good stuff. And we have two players that were also mentioned. So let's skip on to this. That were also mentioned. Bid 100 million for him. Absolutely, I think we should pay as much money as possible. We should break the world transfer record fee for that young lad at Napoli. It's the Scottish lad. 100%. Get him in at all costs. Um, just drain the bank account. Put us into even more debt. Um, um, but we have these two other players that were also linked with Manchester United today in all of this transfer news. And the jokes are still going on, but Manchester United have been watching Adam Wharton, who I am absolutely familiar with, and Hayden Hackney, who I'm familiar with, but less familiar than Adam Wharton. Two young players, obviously, and we're gonna do the player profile for them as well, just in case anybody that isn't familiar um, with them or wants to know a little bit more about them um, can do so here. So Adam Wharton um, is a central midfielder showcasing his talents, both in the championship with Blackburn Rovers before moving to Crystal Palace in the Premier League. His technical skills, he's praised for his two-footedness, allowing him to distribute the ball effectively with both feet. His passing accuracy and vision have been highlighted with descriptions of him as a player who can break lines with his passes, often compared to a deep-lying playmakers like Cambiaso. That's a crazy comparison for his ability to control the tempo of the game. So apparently Adam Wharton can be also regen for all my FM fans. Can be also regen on the cards here for Manchester United potentially. Defensive contributions. Despite his young age, Wharton has shown a commendable work rate off the ball. His tackling and interception rates indicate a player not afraid to get stuck in, something we need, making him a well-rounded midfielder who can contribute defensively as well as offensively, something we definitely need. Mentality and development. His move to Crystal Palace and subsequent performances have been described as flourishing, indicating a player who thrives under pressure and in higher level environments. His calm demeanor and ability to perform on big occasions have been noted, suggesting a mature footballing brain for his age, something we definitely need. With mentions of his potential to become a top level player, especially after his integration into the England setup. Warren's trajectory looks promising. His style fits well in possession based games, something that fits into our system because we are trying to play possession based, which bodes well for his development in modern football. So that was Adam Wharton. Player profile, and then Hayden Hackney player profile. Plays for Middlesbrough. Um, And Hackney's standout trait is his passing range. He's a midfielder as well. He's known for his ability to play progressive passes, often splitting defenses with his vision. He has a high pass completion rate, underlines his reliability in possession. He's described as having a high football IQ. Definitely something that I've mentioned a lot, something that we definitely need in the team. Hackney's ability to read the game allows him to make decisions that not only maintain possession but also advance his team's play. His role in Middlesbrough's setup under Michael Carrick has been pivotal. United links, showcasing his adaptability and understanding of different tactical setups. Uh, Initially, there were concerns about his physicality, but his development has seen him grown into a more robust midfielder capable of competing in the championship for the very least, physical battles while maintaining his technical game. So there might be a slight issue coming into the Premier League, but he has been able to adapt in the Champions League, in the Champions of physical, battles from when he first came in. So that's pretty good and probably could do the same again once he gets into the Premier League, if he is to come into the Premier League. And his leadership and versatility, which he is the captain at Middlesbrough, or in certain matches he has been. His appointment as captain in certain matches indicates trust in his leadership qualities. Hackney's versatility across the midfield positions, combined with his work ethic, makes him a valuable asset capable of fulfilling various roles within the team structure. So again, if you're looking at player profiles, these two guys, tick 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 tick, all the boxes, everything that we're pretty much looking for. Um, Young, high potential. They and this is what I'm saying. The profile of player that INEOS is looking at. Um, Dan Ashworth and everybody else, they're pretty spot on from what I feel like we are really missing in the squad, the current squad. Um, and they're all pretty much on point with each other. Like if you don't get one, there's another guy that he's slightly different but has a lot of the qualities that the other player has, and it's not too far off from each other. So, um, as it goes on to recap here, both players represent the new breed of English midfielder who are not just physically imposing but also technically gifted and tactically aware. Their development paths, especially in the championship, have been under the spotlight, with both showcasing capabilities that could see them thrive in the Premier League or even on the international stage with England. The stories of young talents making significant strides, um, highlighting their readiness for their higher challenges. So again, the profile of player that INEOS are looking here, looking at here, and gathering and scouting and watching, again, very very encouraging. Um, and Richard is excited by this. He wants Adam Warren as a player he would love to have. I really like that kid as well. I think he's very very good. And I would be super ecstatic if Manchester United ends up getting one or both of these players. I think that would definitely signify even further the changes that INEOS have implemented in terms of player recruitment so far to the job that they have done so far. Um, Axe saying he's the full package. It would be the Return of the King. He's talking about Scott McTominay there. Richard saying Warren's price will go through the roof next season, especially if he has a very very good season. So another one. Grace again coming with the, I think, with a little bit of sarcasm here, asking, but does Warren have passion? Um, he might, but it's probably not as much as the Scottish fellow. For sure. The Scottish fellow's passion is absolutely unmatched. Um, if you go into FIFA or EAFC as it's called now, and you go look at his stats, the bottom one, the last one, the bottom right in the corner says passion 99. Warden passion probably like a 72 with potential to grow higher, obviously, because he's a young lad. Um, um, and Rich is saying, I don't know. I think he's okay, but to break up play, I think he's very good. No, I mean they're two very young and exciting players, prospects. Definitely with high potential. And I think they would definitely add value to Manchester United. I mean, we have to take this. This is plans all for summer 2025. So obviously, we have a long way till we get there. But I was very excited by these updates because it's actually very unusual that we get these sort of news literally right after the window has closed, and it's like a brief from the club. This isn't like, I mean, I know the Sun put out one story, but it's not like stuff like that. It really is, feels like a brief from the club. So um sad news, if anybody knows, James Earl Jones has sadly passed away. um he was in Star Wars, if you don't know. So rest in peace to James Earl Jones, legend. Um, just seen that now. Um, I am checking to see if we got any more news. Mazawari did not play in Morocco's match against whoever the hell Lesotho. I don't even know who that is. Morocco won 1-0. Mazawari was an unused sub on the bench, and just seeing a picture of Bruno's brother. Literally looks exactly like him. Any pressing news? Any updates? Since we went live, if you guys want to talk about anything, put it in the chat while I'm looking. I can't see the chat right now, but if you want me to talk on something that, or have a discussion that on something that we haven't talked about yet, start it up in there, and I'll join in a little bit. 6:05. And we'll end shortly as well. I don't see anything. There was this little update by a guy that I don't know who he is. I don't really know this source per se. So take it with a grain of salt. But there was this report that came out, I think right after we went live, that Christian Romero, the centre back from Tottenham, apparently had interest from Manchester United in the transfer window, and Tottenham didn't want to sell. And apparently he will have offers again in the next summer when he has only 2 years left on his contract. So, maybe possibly Christian Romero might be a target again. Doesn't really fit the bill though. Christian Romero, because he's I'm not mistaken, he's kind of on the older side, is he not? So, just gonna confirm that. He's 26. He's not as I thought. For some reason, I thought he was like 28, 29. So he is kind of in a decent age to be looked at. If you sign him, you get at least a minimum of a good 4 years out of him to the age of 30, around there. So maybe he could be a possibility too. We'll keep an eye on that as we go forward. The voice of Darth Vader, absolutely. What the Grace, you don't know what Star Wars is? Or are you just messing with us? Are you messing with us, Grace, or do you really not know what Star Wars is? Because if you don't know what Star Wars is, I think you need to go watch it. Um, I love Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I hope you're messing with me, Grace. Uh, before Grace's time, Richard says, Chad, what do we think of Eric since he can't see the chat right now? Oh, this is what's going on when I can't when I can't see the chat. You having discussions about me behind my back? Any news on Scalvini coming to United? No, unfortunately. As far as I know, I haven't seen anything on Scalvini, and I know you want him. I really want him too. I would love that's like a fantasy transfer for me. Um, it'd be straight out of something of Football Manager. I would absolutely love it. Um, I'll do a quick search just to see, but I didn't see anything. Scalvini to United. Um, yeah, the last article that I see is probably from May. So nothing new, nothing to link us to. Maybe in the summer comes back up, but as of right now, it doesn't seem like we're really um I'm sure we're scouting him, but it doesn't seem like he's gonna be a likely candidate as of right now, unfortunately. Is it true United will hire a new chief of medical department? I haven't seen that either. I know that there was what's his name was let go or is leaving. Let's see. Will United? We could search the internet and see if we find anything credible. Will United hire a new chief of medical? Sorry for the cough. Are we hiring a new chief of chicken? Isn't are we hiring a new chef? The chicken isn't cooking properly. I think they did hire the yeah. I don't know. I remember that, Grace, though. That was embarrassing but disgusting story. Just imagine going to get some food in the stadium and it was uncooked. I mean, how? So based on the information available, up to date, and some of them is probably older. Gary O'Driscoll, is obviously helping to integrate his successor. Oh wait, one. Hold on, no, I read that wrong. United was in the process of enhancing or changing the medical department. There was a report of a major shakeup of Manchester United's medical department led by Gary O'Driscoll. This included a review of the medical setup with the intent to innovate and possibly increase diversity within the team, as indicated. Um, while not directly about the chief of medical position, yeah, that doesn't do nothing for us. So as I see so far right now, nothing super credible on that front. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that front. And I think that's pretty much it. Um, that was already done, Gary. Just okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just didn't know if he was actually if he was staying or not. Um, if that was more of a temporary thing. But it seems like yeah, he's headed that up and he's going to continue to oversee that process. So, new stadium paid completely by the Rat. Not exactly. I did see an update about that earlier, and I'm going to have to go and find it. It was here somewhere. I was going to include in the show. I did forget, so thank you. There was a small update about the stadium. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? So so Manchester United, um, the Trafford Council and the Greater Manchester Combined Authority have entered into a strategic partnership to maximize the growth and regeneration opportunities in the Trafford Wharfside area. The aim is to develop an ambitious vision for the area around Old Trafford with a focus on how a world class stadium can catalyze wider regeneration, bringing social and economic benefits to the whole of Trafford and the wider region. So, that was literally the only update that I kind of seen on on the stadium. I mean, at least from today. Maybe there was one from a couple days ago that I missed. But that those talks and discussions are still ongoing. And they haven't. There's nothing official yet on like something concrete that's definitely going to happen. But they are looking at it and they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do. Um, surrounding that aspect. But we need to figure something out. I mean, I love Old Trafford. I love the way it looks. Per se, in terms of like the classic, it's just a night. It's iconic, you know, the way it looks. But at the same time, it is severely outdated, in many aspects. And we do need to figure out what the hell we're going to do. My preference would be if we could literally regenerate that stadium to make it modern while keeping it. That would probably be my number one preference. Obviously, there's a lot of issues surrounding going down that path. But you know, Manchester United in 2024 and you know, for the future, we do need to have once again, like we did have at the time, a state of the art stadium. We need it. We cannot be Manchester United and not have that. Number one, just for revenue purposes, there's so much more that we could do. And then even you know the issues that they speak about the surrounding area of Manchester, and Trafford. You know, it could definitely help out in that aspect as well. It could create a lot of new jobs and opportunities and really revitalize the surrounding area. So, hopefully, they come to a solution and a decision in that aspect soon, and the that way we can get working on it, and we could finally have something that is proper and fitting for today's time. Grace said she went on a stadium tour a few years back, and I heard they have waterfalls there now. It's worth going back to look at. Um, Telling you, Grace, you should be a stand up comedian. I don't know if you've ever tried it, Grace. Um, but if there's an open mic somewhere near you, I think you should probably go. Take a couple take a couple one liners with you, rehearse them over and over, and definitely go give it a go. I think you could definitely be a comedian, for sure. If you're bored with your day job, Grace, give it a go. Give it a go. Richard saying, well, sure, that's been decided, Eric. They are building the new stadium, then developing Old Trafford for the youth and women's team. I've heard those reports. But when they report it, it seems like they're still discussing it. In terms of what to do, more of like it's a plan. Um, but they haven't fully set on that plan yet. But I know what you're saying, Richard, because I've read those and I've seen those. Um, and it does seem like that is the path that they are definitely leaning to. But from the way it's written, it just seems like they haven't 100% decided that that's exactly like the work on doing that hasn't started yet, like actually, like the plan is there, the plan is formulated. um but it just doesn't seem it's not like they've announced it, like this is exactly what we're doing and work has begun and it's going to take till this time to do so. So they haven't actually said that yet. But I know what you're saying, Richard. You are right. They are leaning in that direction. They are looking at that as probably the most likely possibility. But again, they're still having, according from the reports today, they're still having discussions on that aspect. I guess further details. Um, that's all right. A lot of the comedians, Grace, they drink. They're heavy drinkers. And then some more, more some. But yeah, you could, yeah, why not? You go up there with a beer. They do it all the time. Why not? Go up there with, bring a couple beers with you, or have a couple beers first, and go up there with another beer. You know, that's the comedians. They do that all the time. They're always on stage with a beer. They go on after a couple beers, so for sure. Axe saying the Sheik would have already vested so much money into the new stadium. He would have. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. And again, Axe, I'm not like coming at you here or whatever. I understand your point. Um, and it would have been nice to have the Sheik, obviously, because they could have just probably circumvented this whole process, and we could have had new stadium, new this, new that, new train. It would have been totally fine. Um, but we have to remember that the Glazers are the reason why we didn't get the Sheik. You know, I know at the time it was very polarizing, and there was still blame on Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and I blamed him as well. Privy to the information that we had, and I didn't want Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I wanted the oil money. Um, but the Glazes are the reason why that deal didn't happen, because he did offer to fully buy out the club. And they didn't take Sir Jim's over just the Sheik's offer, because there were other offers for a partial investment from probably way worse conglomerates, if you want to call them. I mean, there was companies from the United States of America that offered the Glazers money in terms of getting a partial stake in the club. um, and I just fully believe that, if it wasn't Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they would have just taken the money from one of those other investors. They never really wanted to do a full sale. They wanted to stick around, so it is their fault. Um, don't really, yeah, like in my opinion, like I can't really blame Sir Jim, because the way I see it is that it was Sir Jim or it was a hedge fund company. Um Sir Jim didn't necessarily screw over the Sheik. I think the Glazers were never gonna take that. They never wanted to do a full sale. They wanted to keep their hands in Manchester United. They still view it as a valuable asset. Um, Well, see, but that's what I'm saying, Ax. Like they got INEOS instead of like I don't know, one of these hedge fund companies, because there was hedge fund companies from America that were trying to offer the Glazers money in return for a partial stake, which is essentially what Sir Jim got. He got a partial stake in the club, but Sir Jim had bigger and better plans in terms of he actually wanted to deal with the football side. The hedge funds, they just wanted to give the Glazers money to continue operating the way they were going to do it. I personally think from the way they went about the business, they pretty much played the Sheik to get the valuation. That's how it in the end, after we got all the news, that's pretty much how it played out in my mind. Like they used the Sheik, they were never gonna sell the club. Unless the Sheik literally offered something absolutely stupid that was like probably double the valuation or triple the valuation. And then at that point, they still might have not done it because they're looking at the long term of Manchester United and football as a moneymaker, and they still might have not done it. So we really got screwed on that end because I would have wanted the Sheik. Obviously, would have been probably easier to do all the financial aspects. We could have spent 300, 400 million this summer easily. We could spend in January easily. But yeah, just take that into account. Like at the time it did seem like, oh, Sir Jim was fucking over the Sheik because he's undercutting his price, but it really didn't play out like that. It didn't play out like that. That's what I'm saying. 6 billion. And they still told him no. They used him. They used him for valuation. They used it so they'd be like, listen, if we were to actually sell it, because on paper it was valued by Forbes or whoever, it was valued at 3.4 or something like that billion. And they used it for the people that they wanted partial investment. They said, well, look, if we were to sell it today, right now, we got a guy here that literally just offered us 6 billion. So, Forbes could say we're valued at 3.4 billion, but obviously the valuation is way higher. It's about double because we could get it for 6 billion. And in fact, we actually value it even higher than 6 billion based on the future projections of this club and football and all of that and the money that's going to be coming into football going forward into the future. So, it was a shitty situation, but at least we ended up. The way I look at it now, at the time I was very upset, but the way I look at it now, at least we got somebody like Sir Jim, and we didn't just keep Richard Arnold and the Glazers, because Sir Jim has put together a team of people that know football and are actually trying to do something. So we could kind of consider ourselves a little bit lucky at the same time that they didn't just accept a bid from some American hedge fund conglomerate that only gives a shit about money and basically just gave him the money and told him to keep running the club they were like how they were running. So, um, yeah, uh, new 100K stadium, then updated or reduced, then update and reduce the capacity to Old Trafford down to 30-40,000. Let the youth and women's team play there. Well, that is the plan, supposedly, that they are really looking for. Grace saying she's not going through a midlife crisis or anything, just need a few glasses of wine to get through watching our games. I mean, yeah, I mean you're not alone in that, Grace. That's not a you. That's not a you problem. Don't worry. Don't worry about that. I mean, I think we all need probably a couple drinks during the match, couple drinks after the match, couple drinks later on in the weekend to help us get not the weekend, the week till we get to the next weekend, and then continue drinking until we finally put in a good performance for sure. So they were offered 6.5 billion for the Buccaneers 3 weeks ago, and they turned that down. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. They just Listen, for us and other people and regular people, we look at it very differently. And I try to put myself. Obviously, I'm not a business expert. And I'm not, I'm not a financial guru or whatever. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not any of those people. So I'm not saying like I know exactly what it is, but I try to put myself in their shoes, right? I try to look at it from their perspective, and I do know common knowledge from their perspective is that when you are in that area and you do have that money that they have, and you do operate in that world that you operate in, everything they own is an asset. And until the day you decide that you are out of the game, um, you never sell your asset. I mean, the Buccaneers is an asset. The Manchester United is an asset. Anything else they probably own, which I'm not, because I don't give a shit too much about what the Glazers do in their daily lives, other than the fact that they own Manchester United, which affects me. You never sell your assets. You never sell it until unless you're ready to get out, unless you're ready to retire. And then even then, sometimes they don't do it because they pass it on to their children or family members. And they look at it that way, as like they hand the asset down to their family members. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like they would have had to give them a ridiculous. I mean, and 6.5 billion is probably still ridiculous. Um, you would have to triple that, probably quadruple it, and no one's gonna do that. No one's gonna give that money because it's outlandish. It's you're pissing money away. For you to make that money back, whoever pays for it, they might just make it back by the time they end up passing away or something. Um, if they live a long life. I mean, so obviously the sheik has a lot of money, and it's kind of like peanuts to them. But at the same time, you're not gonna. There comes a point as well as self-respect and image as well. You're not, he's not gonna pay that to look like an absolute fool in the world of higher ups, because they're gonna make fun of him, and they're gonna, it would be embarrassing for him. They would absolutely, he would be looked at as a clown. He would be looked at as he got absolutely ripped off, and would probably be disrespected in those places. Axe saying, I kind of think that without INEOS, they would have raised the price to the stars, and in the end, the Sheik would have bought out the club because he has the money to satisfy desire. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I did, the Sheik left it there because the Sheik already basically was like, this is, I'm already offering you a ridiculous amount of money. This is the most we're going. And he was like, I'm not going any higher. And they were like, well, we don't even really want to sell the club. We just need some investment to keep us going. And we'll sell a partial stake of it. That way we could keep our asset. So they're like, unless you want to give us, like somebody's saying. But it's about outlooks as well, Axe. I get what you're saying, but it's about outlooks as well. Because if the Sheik gave them 12 billion, the Sheik, I mean, from us, from Manchester United fans, we're not gonna care. We're gonna be like, thank you, we love you. But everybody else, and especially higher ups in the world, other sheiks, kings, whatever, billionaires, trillionaires, like, they're gonna look at him and be like, that guy is a moron. He's a moron. Like, he got absolutely ripped off, and he got a fool made of him because he paid 12 billion. And they're gonna look at the Glazers and they'll be like, the Glazers are genius. They didn't spend a fucking dime on this club, loaded it into debt, and then got this guy to pay 12 billion or 8 billion for a team that they acquired on debt and didn't spend any money, and he has to pay off their debt. You know what I mean? So, like, for him, it's just bad. It's just a bad look if he did it. So that's why I think he came to that position, was like, I'm not going any higher. And they used him for one aspect, and they were like, listen, if he's foolish enough to offer us all that money, maybe we'll take it. But obviously he wasn't. So um now the only thing he could really do is probably play the waiting game. If this project and this venture with Sir Jim Ratcliffe doesn't produce per se anything that improves the club's stature. Right now, there's a lot of optimism in Manchester United. We are looking better in certain areas. If it doesn't produce anything to the point of, I guess, success, where it would elevate the club to be making more money, um, which is probably why the Glazers did in the first place, because the Glazers really, they sucked the commercial aspect probably to the point where it was like, all right, we've kind of fucked this to the point where like we can't increase our commercial revenue anymore because we've been so shit that we now need to fix this so that we can be good again, and that way we can get more commercial revenue and higher deals. Um, so if that doesn't happen, um, and this fails, maybe the Sheik comes back in. Maybe Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It depends what happens with him. Maybe he wants out. Um, and maybe he comes in later on, later down the line, few years from now or something, and maybe he comes back in and he makes him an offer. And maybe they'll be a little bit more forced in their hand to accept the full deal, but that's all, speculation and whatnot. And we're talking about something that might not even happen, but ooh, Ray can't watch the matches without his Jameson Black Barrel. Yeah. Jameson though. Jameson's good. Jameson's very delicious. Grace wants to know why we're supporting INEOS because they sold her idol, her Scottish idol. I mean, I don't know. Um, uh, and then I think Jim will put enough money to make top four regularly because UCL is where the money is. But will he put enough money, enough in to make us challenge for titles? Well, um, I mean, it's a good point. I think there's it's the issue, Grace, of the fact that the club needs to really be operating. I mean, listen, if the club operated properly, like how we were not doing, the club is pretty self-sustaining. We wasted a lot of money, so while I expect him to initially put in a good amount of money, in the beginning, because he kind of needs to, because we were in that position. I mean, the Glazers put us in that position. I think if we start to operate properly, which I think we are right now in terms of transfer deals, um, wages, etc., and we really get a hold of the money we're spending, and we combine that with, I guess, consistent performance or success on the pitch, and like kind of how you're saying, minimum at least top four, Champions League money, performing well in the Champions League and performing well in the league. Manchester United is it's pretty self sustaining. The club makes a lot of money, and it can pretty much pay for itself to become, like, we could spend a lot of money on transfers. We can reinvest the money into stadiums and the squad and etc. But we just can't do that right now because of what has happened in the past 11 plus years under the Glazers, and probably even before. But since they've bought the club essentially. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's the point of the issue of when are we ever going to pay the debt off? I don't expect Sir Jim to pay it. I think that's bullshit that he would have to pay it. The Glazers should pay it. They're obviously not going to. So the club is gonna have to. The club is gonna have to pay it off somehow, one way or another. J Man, J Man says I'm poo. Well, you're poo too. Um, J Man, you're poo too, buddy. I hope you have a nice day. Um, Gray saying if we scored 10 less goals than last season, can we say we miss Scott at the end of the season? Bring Scott home. Yes. If we scored 10 less goals this season, we will make a giant banner that says bring Scott home. 100%. I will be on that. Um and Axe doesn't believe we will ever pay it. Well, as long as the Glazers are here, we probably won't ever pay it because they like it. So, they like the debt. They like that. They like that debt. It's good for business, I guess. Plus also, they're not going to use their money to pay it. So, but on that note, because I do got things I got to take care of, and it's getting late, and I need to eat dinner and all that stuff. It was a very good show. Thank you everybody, for joining in. Very, very fun show. Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Axe. Shout out to Richard. Shout out to Grace, a lovely moderator. Always brightening up the place with her comedy. Shout out to my buddy Daniel Kassar. I don't know if he's still watching here, but we thank you for the Juventus input and the Rabiot input. Came in literally at the perfect time. You can't even set that stuff up. So yeah, there's that. And yeah, shout out J Man. Your poo. Remember your poo. Um, but yes, thank you guys. I appreciate everything. Today is Monday. I'll probably look to do another one Wednesday or Thursday. Obviously, we have the league returning, so we'll be doing a Red Devil recap after the match on the weekend as well. Just keep a lookout. I will schedule the show at least an hour before. So look out for Wednesday or Thursday. We'll be doing a show. And thank you guys for being here. And if anybody hasn't smashed the like button, please smash the like button for me. Greatly appreciate it. And we will catch you all on the next one. Thank you. Have a good night, good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Stay safe, and we will see you later.